Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. Sound plays a more important role in human behavior and our decision-making than you may realize. In this podcast, I'll help you understand the art and science of sound so you can better influence others in business and your life. I'm your host, Jodi Krangle. Let's delve a little deeper. I'm curious also as to when you're explaining this to people who have never had an audio brand before and they've heard about it, but they're not really sure how it will impact their business, possibly even save them money. How would you explain that to them?
Well, I think that the market trends are explaining it for us in many ways. I think
That's a good point.
Right. I think that every modern brand is looking at consumer behavior and looking at changes. And there's been such a seismic shift to, sound on social platforms or audio first platforms or audio only platforms. And, the conversation that we have is, is your brand on mute? And if it is,
Good
then
question.
It's an opportunity for your competitors to really leap ahead. If folks are kind of experiencing content and they can't hear you, or you're not cutting through, or there's just sort of an element missing. It actually, whereas I think previously it felt like a nice to have or an addition to a brand identity. Now folks are sort of seeing where consumers are going, where their investment dollars are going, and they're really considering, well, if I don't have an audio expression, then there's something missing. And then in the minds of consumers, even though they might not consciously even notice it, subconsciously there'll be something where, they will prefer a brand that is sort of speaking to them directly through their, brand assets on audio platforms, as opposed to one that doesn't have anything. So that's really, I think the conversation that most folks are having before they even have, reach out and talk to us.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
becoming
think
quite
also,
something.
It's and in many ways there have been brands that have been doing it very well for a period of time. Some through design. AT&T has done incredibly well. American Express has done incredibly well. McDonald's, who everybody always references, which started off as a Justin Timberlake song and, has gone
Yes.
through many, many iterations over the
Yep.
years. Intel obviously is another one that people kind of can reference.
Of course. Yeah.
When those things break through into pop culture, when they break through into, the collective consumer consciousness, you've got a real hit on your hands. You've got a hit record that will stand the test of time. And that's really what we go, we set about to craft, is something that's iconic, that will stand the test of time. And, there's certain things that will reach people and will be effective. And, the more brands that sort of cotton onto it, the more, realize, gosh, we need one of those as well.
Yeah. Also having a kind of place where you can get all of your music assets or your sound assets from, as opposed to having to create them every time you do something new, that is going to save a lot of money. Whether this is, we know this is an investment in the company. So having that kind of asset available that can change depending on how your company changes, and still retain that follow through, still have the same musical elements and emotional feel that matches your company from spot to spot to spot, whatever you're doing. It's really important. And I think a lot of people are starting to figure out that it's really important.
Yeah. And I think it's also one where you have to do it right.
Yes, very much
because
so.
not all sonic branding is created equal. And I do sometimes feel that people think, we could just add a couple of notes. Hey, why don't we get the agency to add a couple of notes to our commercial and see if that does anything? I've heard those conversations, and uh, you know, good luck experimenting. But it's
So why doesn't that work? Now I want to get
well,
into the
well,
nitty gritty here. Why doesn't
yeah,
something like
no,
that work?
absolutely. Well, because it's not connected to the brand for a start. And I think that, you really do have to go through a whole sort of peeling back of the onion to actually understand what a true core brand sound is. I'll give you another example. Um, in the market at the moment, there are about 10 brands that have some version of a doorbell as their sonic logo.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
And it's bad for them. I mean, it would be as if they all copied each other's visual identity, and this is everything from, a home goods store to a delivery service to, a mortgage company. I mean, they've all kind of got these things.
Yeah,
And
you're talking about this in sense of a sound, but I also
right,
have heard this happen in people using license-free music, right? So the same
right.
piece of music
How
across
can you,
10 different
right.
brands that are completely unrelated.
And you lose that sense of ownership. You
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
lose that direct connection with your consumer. They're going to have no sense of brand attribution. And I often say, you can't cut through the clutter when you are the clutter.
Good
So
point.
you talk about like the risks, of going out there and perhaps not contemplating the rest of the market, or not sort of approaching it from a strategic way where a particular sound couldn't be anyone else. Those are the risks. And oftentimes they don't last in market very long. And it's a big undertaking, and a lot of investment that isn't necessarily going to pay off. So, I think that there are definitely always going to be folks that perhaps, want to take the quick, easy shortcut for any type of branding. I mean, the number of agencies that I've heard from a client who said, "Oh, my nephew's pretty good on PowerPoint, so they're going to give it a go with the graphic design. Hope you don't mind." Those things are right throughout the industry.
Happens all the time. Yeah. And even in voiceover.
Right?
Oh, my nephew does. Yeah, he did a few things for us. Yeah, we'll have him do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Yeah.
Happens all the
Exactly.
time. Yeah. But I'm wondering now which of your brands that you've worked on you enjoyed working on the most. If you have, I mean, maybe that's like
Wow.
asking you to have a favorite child, but
It is a little bit. It is a little bit.
but do you have a
Um,
particular memory from any particular brand that you worked with that you really are
I I
happy
mean,
with?
I would say, oh gosh, I mean, my favorite brand is the brand that we're usually, just about to launch or just kicking off with. I mean, and there are so many along
Yeah,
the
and you
way.
can't talk about it. I know.
I know, I know, I
One
know.
you've done.
That's also why I'm kind of like mentally thinking who we can talk about.
I don't want you
Um,
to, violate an NDA here.
Not at all, not at all. I mean, I would say that I'll give you two. I'll give you one on
Okay.
the brand side, and one on the entertainment side. On the entertainment side, we recreated the sound of Turner Classic Movies recently. And that was a very, very exciting opportunity because they're such a storied brand. And, they were really going through this transition, this whole brand transformation where they'd sort of been considered a bit of the old, black and white, movies for old people and that type of thing. But people weren't as aware that a classic movie these days is actually sort of something that's been released in the 90s and the 2000s. So Pulp Fiction is a classic movie these days.
Oh my
So
God, I feel old.
it was
Wow.
such an exciting moment to be a part of their transformation. And again, like to what I was saying earlier, something that made the brand feel inviting. That they were, really sort of seeing other audiences and other, folks that might not have given TCM a shot in the past. So that project, it was sort of the big sweeping orchestral that you would potentially expect, classic Hollywood. But we mixed that with very, very modern, hip hop and bass and drums, and we actually recruited a tap artist called Caleb Taite, who actually sort of tap danced the motif throughout it, which became their iconic Sonic logo.
I love
And
it.
yeah, that piece in particular is just because it's so then meets now, and we've been winning a number of awards. It won a Clio award, and it's won a number of things so far, because I think it really connected with
Wonderful.
audiences and did a really great job. So
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, those types of things are always fun. And I think on the other side, American Express have been a brand that have absolutely, in the similar way that AT&T did, they've embraced the power of a full sonic identity system right throughout the customer journey. So, from everything from obviously, commercials, but payment sounds and all of their social work that we've been doing for them. They have the wonderful Centurion lounges in all the airports, and we've been creating custom made ambiances that make people feel a particular way. We've
One
partnered.
day I hope to experience that for
You
myself.
should. You should come along. You should come fly with us, Jodi. We're gonna take you to the Centurion Lounge. It's gonna be
I
a
look
blast.
forward to it. Yes.
But it's one of those lovely things where you can just see, like, when a brand is taking it seriously and they start to look at, where do we interact with human beings? Like, where do we want to show up, and where do we want to make people feel something? Because we often say that we're an emotional connection company. That's at the heart of everything we do. It's like, how do we make human beings actually feel something about a
That's a
brand, or
good, yeah,
right,
something
a
to be done with
show, an
music. Yeah.
experience? Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I've said this quite a few times, but it still rings true. I think that the superpower of sound is that people think about what they see, but they feel what they hear. And that is magic. I mean, that is transformative. That is what turns audiences into fans. That is what turns, faceless consumers into brand fans, and create something where there's a real connection. Because if you make that spark, if you make that connection, people don't forget it easily. And you've just given yourself such a huge competitive advantage, when they've got to make a decision further on down the track. So it's a great place to be working.
Definitely is. Yeah. The emotion of it is so powerful. And yeah, it's especially when it comes to music in film, because when you're talking about all that, then you're using the music as another character to get you to feel what's happening in the film. I mean, you turn off the
Absolutely.
sound on a horror film and you're not scared anymore, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone's seen that Psycho scene without the
Yes.
without the violins, and oh boy, it's pretty
Yeah.
dull.
That's
Yeah, I mean,
exactly it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Look, that is that's the beauty of it, really. And I think that's why everybody here is so passionate about it. No brand is the same, no show is the same, no audience is the same. You've almost got to become a method actor every time you step into an assignment, and think what is being conveyed. And it's a great analogy that you make to film music. We often talk about scoring the brand experience, or scoring the touch points. And from our experience, when you're working with a director, or a producer, they never say, I want the music to sound like lots of drums and lots of this and lots of that. That's just, they know that they're going to leave it to the experts. They say, I want the audience to feel this about this moment. I want the audience to feel this about this particular character? How are you going to convey that with sound in a subtle way? And I think most of the time when you're watching a great TV show or movie or something on your mobile phone even, you don't necessarily have to pay attention to the music. It just moves you in a way that's going to advance the story, or it's going to make you understand a character a little bit better without having to think about it. And it's remarkable how you can take those same principles. It's like your question earlier about how do you get people to tell you what their brand sounds like.
It
It's
can be hard.
right, but that is that's sort of the comparison to the entertainment. It's like you're not sort of putting somebody who's not musical in an awkward position of saying, well, I think my car sounds like, oboes and, death metal. I
Oh,
think,
that would be quite a combo there. I love that
you,
combo. Someone should try that.
there is a chance to say, what do you want somebody to feel about your car? Like, what is it that you would love us to, convey to the broadest audience or to a very niche audience that you're looking to target? And again, that's where the research comes in, because if you can take folks on that creative journey, if you can build that sense of trust, and you can really push the edges of even how they perceive their own brand into new creative territory, that's where the magic happens. That's where you really do stumble across that inevitable sound that perhaps wouldn't have presented itself if you'd gone down a tried and true process. You've got to open yourself up to those moments of serendipity that just present themselves, and when you know it, and then you can build and create and get everybody excited.
Sure, yeah. And it is really exciting to see where this is all going. And along those lines, I'm curious what you think the future of all this is. Where do you think it's going?
Well, I think that, we've been dealing a lot with Web3 and metaverse at the moment. We've
Does
been,
anyone really know what that is what I
I,
want to know.
yeah, it's like this, only the digital version of this. I think that, it's very much where things are headed. Not necessarily all headed. I don't necessarily believe that we're all just playing a giant video game of someone else's creation. Or at least I hope we're not.
I hope so
Uh,
too.
but I do think that what we're doing is it's exciting, because it's bringing personality and emotional connections to a purely digital space. And I think that the partners that we're working with, Metashima and so on, they are so unbelievably good at creating the product for that world, and creating something which is going to be very tangible visibly, and within that space create meaning and structure to everybody entering that world. And what we're doing, in the same way that we have done with entertainment and brands and industrial design, is applying that sonic element to it, which actually it personifies products, but it also humanizes the experience. So I think
Yeah.
where is everything headed? I mean, it's kind of headed where it's always been heading. It's wherever you need to feel something about a new experience, platform, entity. Sound and music is always going to have an important role to play. I mean, that's why you ask people as your first question, what's your first memory of sound? I mean, I doubt anyone sort of struggles with that, because it's already
Everyone has a story. It's
right.
true.
It
Yeah.
conjures up a feeling. It conjures up a memory. It takes them back. It's like time travel with sound, in the same way that scent can impact your brain. So
Very much so.
I'm
Yeah.
always looking to the future of where consumers are headed, and thinking, what's the role of story there? What's the role of sound and music there? What's the what's the piece that's actually going to entertain people and keep them hooked. I think that's, if you can come up with that formula, then you're onto a winner.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are lots of different formulas, I guess, that could go into this. So,
Yeah, it could all
yeah.
go horribly wrong, Jodi. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have Skynet. There we go. Yeah, let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
No. So, what are you working on now that you could talk about?
What can I talk about? Well,
You
the
can be really
latest.
vague if you want to, as well.
No,
Like you don't have to
no,
be.
no, no. I mean, we have a lot of things that are going on all at once. In all honesty, we're working with one thing I can't talk about for another couple of weeks, but there's a really exciting jump back into sports themes for a brand which is going to just completely reinvent itself in a super exciting way. So we're really, really happy to be a part of that process, and maybe by the time the podcast comes out, we'll be able to give you an update. We just finished with Panera Bread, who have gone through another fantastic rebrand,
I
and
saw some of that online, and it was really brilliant. Yeah, it
it's a
sounded
lot of
really good.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, whereas Tostitos, it made sense to create something which was very visceral, like the product experience, made out of the packets and so on. Panera Bread is very much about the the anticipation of the delicious meal, and then the payoff, and so everything is built around a really lovely, warm call and response, which totally reflects the consumer experience with that brand. And they're just doing wonderful things. I mean, I think that's also one of the lovely things about working with all of the brands that we do is you become friends with the clients, and they bring you into their world, because the more they do that, the better you understand, their challenges and where they're headed, and who they're trying to appeal to. But you also get the pure excitement about what they're creating and the things that they're doing next and where they're taking their companies. And it's really it really rubs off on you, and you all of a sudden you find yourself drinking a particular beer that you've been working with, or eating a particular product, or looking maybe a little bit at that car that was perhaps out of your range previously, but you know what, I know what goes into it, so it might be worth supporting them. You ultimately become probably like the biggest fans of the people that you're working with. But
That's good
lots
though.
yeah, and
That's
I think
important.
also I think the newer things that we're working on. Again, we're not allowed to talk about this yet, but there's an autonomous vehicle which is doing some really, really wonderful things in a test area at the moment, but it's going to be going broad next year. And their approach was something we got very excited about, which is really sort of the democratization of public transport, and making it feel like the real people carrier, and so we really sort of leaned into the true sort of sound of the streets, which is a little sneak preview, but there's some fun there. And yeah, I think going forward, you're seeing more and more brands, not necessarily just the biggest spenders, but I think everybody is looking to have an element of that enhanced emotional connection. And so we just take on the challenges as they come. I mean, it's so there's never two jobs the same, there's never a client that's the same, there's never a challenge that's the same, which keeps it interesting and keeps us looking to the future.
Yeah, that's the fun of it, I would imagine. It's always different. Kind
Yeah,
of why I love what
absolutely.
I do.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Every day is different. That's part of the fun of it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if
Well,
people
we
want to get
appreciate what
in,
you do, Jodi, I've got to say.
thank you. I really appreciate your being here. But I want to give people a way to get in touch with you if they'd like to do that. So how can people reach out to you if they'd like to?
Well, they can reach out through the website. It's probably the easiest way, mademusicstudio.com, or follow us on the socials. If they want to reach out to me directly, I mean, there's an email address in there. I'm not going to bore your listeners by reading out my email address, but
You're on LinkedIn too, right?
I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah.
Yep, this is John Taite, Taite. Everyone misspells it. Yeah. But
we won't do that
absolutely.
here, I promise.
Well, if anyone reaches out to Jodi and they say, well, this client opportunity is coming through Jodi's show, then we'll make sure that we give you that check in the mail.
Well, we'll see about that. Yeah, maybe then I can afford to go to those Centurion lounges.
There you go. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time.
Yes.
They might even sponsor the show. There you go.
You never know. I have been hearing some really interesting things about Amex, though. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see where all that goes. And I love that they're a global brand and that they're actually they're thinking of themselves as a global brand. They're not, so different places are experiencing different emotional sound. I love how they're working on that, and with your help, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we do. We look globally. I mean, we're a global sonic studio, we call ourselves. Sure. I would say that our area of expertise in the US is such that we've probably launched more sonic identities in the US than all of our competitors combined, which is nice. But
it's
the
a
beauty
pretty big market.
Yeah, but the I think beyond that is, I would say probably 50% of our clients are global clients. And they're always dealing with, home market versus rest of world, and how does that play out, from sometimes we call it a glocal level, which is like a little nice mix of global and local. You don't want to make sure, you don't want to make sure everybody feels a part of what you're creating, and the research certainly goes a long way to establishing that. But
sure, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that everybody either has, ambitions to launch globally, or a lot of the global brands that we have ambitions to launch in the US. So it's nice to kind of cross-pollinate all those best practices and make sure that everyone gets the best they can.
I love it. Thank you so much for talking with me about this, John. This has been a really great conversation, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with people because I think they need to hear.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words, Jodi, and thanks for your time.
Thanks. Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, why not tell a friend about this podcast? It's available in all the usual locations. Until next time.